You can tell a lot about a man by what he does when the lights are off, the cameras are gone, and there's no one around to applaud his effort. That's where character is revealed. That's where discipline is forged. It's easy to say the right things, to flex discipline, to show off ambition. But the truth is, the habits, mindset, and quiet choices a man makes in solitude are what determine the quality of his life. Not the curated image, not the applause, not the noise. And that, right there, is where high-value men separate themselves from the crowd. Because it's easy to act put together when people are watching. So what do high-value men really do when no one's watching? But because they have trained themselves to beat the sun to the punch, not always in perfect sentences or for social media posts, but to gain clarity. They write down thoughts that weigh them down and ideas that light them up. They track progress. They face their fears on the page before they face them in real life. Maybe it's in the gym, maybe it's in their craft, but they don't need a crowd to get to work, no bragging. It's not glamorous to go to bed early. It's not sexy to skip the party for progress. But it's exactly those invisible choices, those uncelebrated habits, that make all the difference. They lift when it's hard. They run when it's cold. They rehearse when it's boring. They send a check to a friend who's struggling. They help without needing credit. Their integrity is consistent, not situational. They don't act generous when it's good PR. They act generous because it's who they are, with or without recognition. Because repetition builds mastery, and mastery doesn't require applause. In those early hours, when the world is still asleep, they're already ahead. They don't suppress their feelings, but they don't let those feelings drive the car either. They sit with discomfort. They acknowledge their inner voice. And when they fail, because they do, they take full ownership. No blame, no victim mindset, but as necessary. Because high-value men would rather face an uncomfortable truth and live in comfortable delusion. Just lessons, absorbed in silence, away from the spotlight. Not rushing, not reacting, but preparing, reflecting, centering. Am I showing up as the man I want to be? Am I living with alignment? Where am I lying to myself? The answers may surprise you. They don't always feel like doing the right thing, but they do it anyway. That's the distinction. They're not scrolling aimlessly. They're not drowning in distractions. And they're definitely not waiting for permission to move. When you tell yourself you're going to do something and you follow through, even when it is hard, even when no one sees, you build trust with the most important person in your life, yourself. High-value men move with purpose, even in silence. Let's go behind the curtain. They wake up with intention, not because a boss told them to, not because their phone buzzed. They journal. The books they consume are often dense, filled with ideas that stretch the mind and force reflection. Philosophy, psychology, history, finance. Not always popular reads, but foundational ones. High-value men build systems to keep their emotions in check. They read, not to impress others, but to sharpen the sword, to learn, to grow, to challenge assumptions. When no one's watching, they train. Their relationship with discipline is private. There's no showmanship in their routines. And here's something else that might surprise you. When no one's watching, they call their mothers. They audit their lives. In the quiet of the night or the calm of the morning, they ask themselves hard questions. That kind of self-honesty is rare. It's painful. They're not perfect, but they're consistent. When no one's watching, high-value men hold the line. They don't break promises to themselves, because they know those private promises are the building blocks of public confidence. That self-trust becomes unshakable over time. It's what allows them to walk into rooms without needing validation, to speak without needing approval, because they've already earned their own respect. In silence, in solitude, they're not swayed by every trend, every headline, every opinion. They choose inputs that elevate, not distract. The awareness that life is fragile reminds them to live fully, to love fully, to focus on what actually matters. That kind of reflection happens in silence, often in the spaces most people avoid. Their minds are temples, not playgrounds. They also rest intentionally, not in a lazy, checked-out way, but in a deliberate, restorative way. They understand the difference between grinding and burning out. They know when to pull back, when to recover, when to reset. Because sustainability matters more than speed. They think in decades, not days. When no one's watching, they guard their environment. They curate their digital space. They protect their peace. Growth is not an accident for them. It's intentional, daily, and deeply personal. When others look for shortcuts, they build the long road, brick by brick. They reflect on death, not out of fear, but out of clarity. Not in a cruel way, but in a committed way. They demand excellence. They hold themselves accountable, and when they fall short, they adjust quickly. Not because life is easy, but because they've trained in the dark. They've met themselves in the mirror, again and again, until they've built something solid, something real, something resilient. They don't waste solitude. You're not performing for likes. You're not waiting for feedback. You're shaping the man you become. They use it. They don't need the world to watch to do what's right. In the small hours, in the hard moments, when quitting would be easy, when no one would know, when compromise whispers in their ear. They do it because they've committed to a standard, and that standard doesn't bend just because no one's checking. To recalibrate, to recenter, to reignite. They understand that what you do when no one's watching is the ultimate expression of self-respect. Don't obsess over what they wear. Don't imitate their surface. Study their silence. That's where power lives. High-value men master the mundane. They find greatness in the repetition. In fact, they're hardest on themselves when no one's around. They don't hide from their flaws. They investigate them. They don't wait for life to force growth. They initiate it. When others take breaks, they reflect. When others give up, they reset. That's what makes them a value, not the watch, not the suit, not the follow account, but the unseen labor, the private discipline, There's a calmness to them. They don't need to prove anything because they've already proven it to themselves. And that's the secret. That's the part most people miss. High-value men don't become who they are in the spotlight. They become who they are in the shadows. But they don't flinch. They don't fold. They keep showing up. They keep moving forward. They keep choosing the harder right over the easier wrong. Again and again and again. So if you want to become one of them, don't focus on what they post. Because what high-value men do when no one's watching, that's where the real blueprint lives. That's where transformation happens. That's where greatness begins.